These are my top 10 features for beginners to get started using Microsoft Lists. We will cover everything from creating and customizing your first list to team collaboration. So with that being said, let's nerd out. Firstly, we are going to learn how we can create a list, and there are two key ways that we can do this, starting with tip number one, which is creating a list directly within a Teams channel. Here we are within a Teams channel, and to add a list, we will go up to this plus icon, and then we will locate lists. If you can't see it right away, then you can just search for lists in the search bar and then locate it that way. And then now lists is going to be added to this channel. So if we click save, then a new tab is going to be added at the top here. And you can create a list or you can add an existing list. So if you already have a list, then you can bring it into the channel this way. Let's go and create a list. Next, we have some predefined templates to quickly get started, such as an issue tracker, employee onboarding, recruitment tracker, or even travel requests. And these only scratch the surface of what is available. And when you select one of these templates, then you can get a preview of the different column layouts that are already defined in the template, which is a great way to get started when you do have an idea of what you would like your template to look like. But if we go back out of here, then there are also some additional options at the top. And for the purpose of this video, we are going to start off with a blank list. And then here we will give it a name, call it grooming clients. So at Amy's Animal Shop, we are going to be tracking our grooming customers. And then we can pick a color, as well as we'll select this little calendar icon and then create. And here is our list. And the great thing about adding a list directly into a Teams channel is that it inherits all of the permissions that are already defined within that channel. So it's a great way to manage permissions to that Microsoft list. But now let's take a look at tip number two, which is creating a list directly within the Microsoft Lists app. Here we are within the Lists app, and to get to Microsoft Lists from any of the other 365 apps, then you can go to the waffle icon and locate lists that way. From the home page, you will have your favorited lists at the top, and then some predefined filters at the bottom for your recent lists or my lists, which are your own personal lists. So let's go and select new list. So this is going to bring us to a very similar experience to what we just saw, but let's go blank list once again. This time we will call it grooming clients lists, and then we can pick a color, pick an icon, and then at the bottom here, we have this save to. Previously, we created the list directly within the Teams channel. And as we saw, when we add a list into that channel, then that list is going to inherit the permissions of the channel. And as we saw, is very important. Now you could go with my list, but that's creating your own personal list. And if you do want to have your own list for tracking your own projects, then that is great. But one of the biggest benefits of lists is the collaboration factor. So by adding this to a team, then we are opening up the opportunity to collaborate and streamline our operations. So let's go and assign this to the dog boarding team, which is the same team that we created the other list in. And another important consideration here is that when you have multiple lists within the same team, then they are able to speak to each other and you can link information. But if you have a list in one team and then another list in another team, then you won't be able to link those lists. And we will dive into linking lists a little bit later. So now that we've assigned that to the dog boarding team, we also have this show insight navigation. I'll leave this turned on for now, and we'll see where that shows up in a moment. So let's create. Moving on to tip number three, which is how we can add columns to customize our lists. And one of the biggest benefits of Microsoft Lists is just how flexible it is. And in this section, we are going to take a look at various column types so that we can customize this list and tailor it to your needs. Let's first start off by renaming this title column. We'll go down to column settings and then rename. Let's call this one pet name brackets T. And the reason why I like to put the T in brackets is because the title column is the unique identifier within your list We cannot delete this column, and we also cannot change the column type. And no matter what we rename this column, the internal name for the column will always be title. So when you get into more advanced features, you're going to see the column name be title. So that's why I like to keep this T there, to make it transparent to myself as well as my team members that this column is the basis for the title column. And save. So let's now go and add our first pet. We will go up to add new item. We'll call the pet name Rue and then save. So we have our first column and our first item in our list. Next, we are going to add another column, and these are the different types that are available to us. And we are going to walk through a handful of these so that you can see all of the unique differences. So this column, we will go with a number. And then here we will give it a name. We will call this reservation number. And then there are some additional options here. But if we go more options, then we have some additional features. So I'm going to toggle off this 1000 separator and then turn on require that this column contains information, and then also enforcing unique values, and save. So now let's go and add our second pet. This one we will call Charles. And then here we have that reservation number, and it's got this little asterisk to indicate that it's required. So if we enter 1, then save, and we can see our Charles has been added. And then now when we select Rue, we are also going to see that we need to enter a value here. So if we enter 1, then we are going to get this error saying that this value already exists. So we know that that unique values checkbox is working. But if we go 2, then we can now save that item and close out of Rue. Next, we are going to add an image column. Just scroll on down a little bit here and then select image. We'll call this column pet photo and then save. Next, we are going to insert another column, but this time I'm going to insert it between the pet name and the reservation number. And you'll see that when we hover between these two column types, a little plus icon appears. So if we select that, then we can now go and select date and time. And this column is going to be for the groom date. It's going to be the date that the pet comes in for their next grooming. With the date and time field, there are a couple of options here. So if you did want to include a specific time, then you can toggle that on. And then there's also this friendly format, which makes the date easier to read. So we will go ahead with those and then save. Next, we will add a column for person, and this is going to be the groomer for the service date. Also wanted to note that for the person column type, this person is going to be part of your organization's directory, but they do not need to be a part of the 365 group that you are creating the list in. But it's important to note that depending on the workflows that you create for your list, you might be granting the person that you assign here permissions to this list. That gets into SharePoint permissions, which is a whole other topic, but that is just something to consider when you are adding people here. You do want to think about the sharing of information. And then here you can toggle on or off whether you want to show profile pictures for the groomer or not, which does create a nice visual aspect. And then next we are going to add a choice column, and this is going to be for the service that the pet is booked in for. So we can go bath. I think blue is pretty appropriate for that one. Nails, we can update the color for this one here, and then haircut, right? And then you can add more choices or delete them as needed. If you need to edit any of the columns that we've just created, then you can select the drop down, go column settings, and then edit. And this will open up that ribbon that we were just working in. Now, there are a couple of additional options here for the choice column. So here, if you select can add values manually, then when people are adding items to your list, they'll be able to add items directly within the add new item window, rather than opening up this column type and then adding new choices that way. Additionally, there is this default value. So you can define that every time that an item is added, that the default service would be bath. I'm just going to turn both of those off. And then if we expand the more options, there is a few other options here. So you can display the choices in a drop-down menu. This is my personal preference, but you can also use radio buttons if you prefer. And with the drop-down menu, we also have the ability to select multiple selections. So if a pet wanted to come in and have a bath and a haircut, or a bath and a nails trim, then we could select each of those items. I'm going to turn all of these off for now. And last but not least, if you need to delete any of these columns, then you can simply delete this using the button on the bottom right. I'm going to cancel out of there. Next, we are going to add another number column, and this one is going to be for the pet's weight in pounds, and we'll just save that. Next, we are going to add a yes or no column, and this is going to be a simple toggle for us to define if the pet has any allergies. So for the default value on this one, we can leave this as yes, and then expand the more options. We want to make sure that this is a required field and that the team is taking action on it every time that an item is added. Save. Now we will add a column for a multiple lines of text, and this is going to be any allergy notes. And then for the description, I'm going to say if none, then add NA. And once again, we are also going to ensure that this is a required field. If we save this, then when we go add new item, we'll see here at the bottom that for the allergy notes, it's even got that note, if none, then NA. So this is where you can provide additional instructions to your team members. And another thing that I like about the required columns, I did have to refresh my screen, so you might need to do that. But when you already have items in here, you're going to see this required info warning under these required columns. And another thing is that we also get this items that need attention. So this is a predefined filter that will filter out which items have required fields where you are missing information. So in this case, we just have 2 items added, but if you had a lot of items, then this can certainly help you narrow down which items you need to gather more content for. There are some additional column types here that we have not covered, such as the hyperlink column, or even a manage metadata where you can pull information from your organization's taxonomy of keywords, or even a lookup column where you can link your lists that are within the same team. Beyond that, you can also add a calculated column, but these are all other advanced features that I have covered in another playlist, and I'll include that at the end of this video. Let's now move on to how we can customize our list view, starting with tip number 4, which is how we can reorder and resize our columns. So to resize our columns, we can simply hover between 2 columns and then adjust them like that. You can almost imagine as if there's invisible headers between each of these column types. And if we go to add a new item, then in this new item view, we'll notice that the groom date is not below the pet name like we had specified in the list view. Fortunately, we can correct this by going up to this little drop-down caret on the top right, going edit columns. So from this view, we can hide any columns that we want to remove from this new items form. And you'll notice that the reservation number along with the allergy columns are grayed out. And the reason for that is because they are the required fields. So we cannot hide them from the form as they are required when we add a new item. And then to reorder these, we can simply select the column and then we can just drag it to a new position. Once you have customized this, then we can go and save. And you'll see that that groom date has now been updated to that new position within the new item. So now we are going to populate our third pet. And there we can see that Layla has now been added to our list and it is starting to come together. Which leads us to tip number 5, which is show and hide columns. So here we can customize this list view. We can select on any of the columns here, go column settings, and then show hide columns. So this is going to populate all of the columns that we have just added. And then there are also some other column types down here that are automatically created and embedded into these list items. For example, every item has its own unique ID already built in. This is going to be the modified date and the created date. And then the created by or the modified by is the person that created or modified the list item. So these are going to be some of those back end items that you can also add to your list view here and customize it as you see fit. And the other column type that I find particularly helpful is the attachments. And this is included at the bottom of every new item form for each list item and gives you an opportunity to upload additional files such as PDFs, videos, and images to each item. So you can simply toggle them on or toggle them off. Then for this list view here, we have a similar experience. So if we wanted to hide some of these columns, then we can simply toggle them off. Or if you wanted to reorder some of these items, then we can say, for example, drag the groomer down here and move the allergies up to a more prominent area as those are quite important. So this is how we can edit the column view for our list main view. Next, we are going to take a look at tip number 6, which is edit in grid view. If we go up to the top left and select edit in grid view, then this allows us to easily update all of our column types in a grid format. So it makes it super easy to batch update. And one thing that I find super helpful is that if you populate a column like we have here or a cell, then we can drag it down and that is going to copy the contents down. So if you use Excel, then it's a similar experience. And for the groom date, we will just go and update all of these and we'll see that friendly format populating through. That photo, we will just quickly add some images. Load and Charles. Okay, so we can see how easy it is. If you have a ton of rows, then you can see how efficiently you can update all of this data. Okay, we are almost there. Sometimes you just need to double click in a column. So now that we have all of our contents there, we can now just go exit grid view. But it seems that we still haven't acknowledged this required info. So I'm just going to go back into edit and grid view, and then we will select in these cells. I'm just going to go on and then off, and we can just leave those ones off. There we go. So now all of our required fields are happy and our content is in there. Moving on to tip number 7, which is how we can format our columns. So let's format this allergies column. We can go down to column settings and then format this column. With the yes, no column, we have an option here for format yes and no. So we will turn that on and now we can go edit styles. I'm actually going to switch these colors around because if somebody has allergies, then we want it to stand out. And if they don't, then we want that green light. Now we can save there. And now we've added some formatting to that column. The second type of formatting that I wanted to add is going to be for this weight column. So once again, we will just go column settings, format this column, and this time we are going to use data bars. So we can see how data bars make a nice visual representation of the size. So for example, if you had some information about like cities and population sizes, then this would create a really nice way for you to see how big some of your items are. And the nice thing about this data bars is that we can go edit template, and then we can update the colors here as well if you do just want to switch it up a little bit, and you can even define some minimum or maximum values. So let's go ahead and save. And now we have formatted our list with 2 of those out of the box features that are super easy to use. And beyond these out of the box features, you can also apply some custom conditional formatting via JSON. So if you just go to the advanced mode here, then here you can update the JSON and then you can apply custom formatting. I have done a ton of other videos on this advanced functionality, and I've included those in my Microsoft List playlist as well for you to check out later. Moving along to tip number 8, which is sorts, filters, and custom views. So let's head on up to this add view. We will call this calendar. And then here we have some different layouts for our views. So I'm going to select the calendar view. And then here you could also update the layout for your calendar. I'm quite happy with the week, so we will accept the default. Moving along, we have a start date and an end date on the calendar. And in this case, the groom date has auto-populated. But if you, for example, had a contract start or a contract end or a check-in or a checkout, then you can use those here. Down below, we have some visibility. So by leaving this as public, leaving this checked, then this view is going to be visible to everyone that has access to this list. If you toggled it off, then it would just be visible to yourself. We will leave this on and then create. So here we have our calendar, and we can see that it has defaulted to that weekly view, but most of our appointments are scheduled for next week. So if we toggle the dates, then we can see those appointments. And the great thing I love about the calendar view is that you can take an item and you can drag it to a new location, and it is going to update that list item based on your updating in the calendar layout. We can see here that Rue's groom date has now been moved to November 30th. If we close out of here, and from here, we can just toggle between the views using these tabs on the top right. Next, we are going to create a gallery view. Similar experience, but this time I will select gallery and create. And so the gallery view is great if you have visual items. So for example, a product line or clothing, cute dogs, then you can have these nice visual cards to easily identify your items. And the great thing about the gallery view is that from this drop down on the top right, we can select Format Current View. And this is going to pull up some additional settings. Sometimes it just takes a minute to load, where we can now customize these cards in this view. So if we go Edit Card, then now we can toggle on or off the different columns that we want to appear on these cards, which can help condense or expand the information visible. Once you're happy, then you can save and then close out of here. And the other great thing is that we have this filter icon at the top. So if we select that, then we can even filter for various column information, including our services. So we can see that Charles is the only pet that has a haircut scheduled. So now we can see that our gallery view has been pinned to the top right, and we have our different views that we can toggle between. So let's now create a board view. We will select board, which puts your list into a Kanban style layout. And the boards are organized by different column types. So not all column types are applicable for categorizing your board view. But in my example, we can organize our board by allergies, which is that yes, no column, or our services, which are our choices for haircut, bath, or nails. So let's organize this one by service, and we will create. So similar to the gallery view, we can select the dropdown for our board view and go Format Current View and then Edit Card. And this is where we can once again add or remove information to expand or condense our cards. And then once you're happy here, similar to the calendar view, we can easily drag and drop our items and move them around, and that's going to update each of the cards. All right, so let's just drag Charles over to the boss so that he does have a service assigned. And the next view that I want to show you is a custom list view, which is very helpful and something that I have used throughout a lot of different operational processes. So my process for doing this, I would recommend following this. Otherwise, you might run into errors and you might actually mess up this all items view. So let's go add new view. We're going to call this one Amy's appointments, and we're going to keep it as list, and then we will create. So now that we are in Amy's appointments view, you want to make sure that you are selected there because that's the one that we're going to be editing and making these changes to. So now we're going to bring together a bunch of different pieces. So starting off, we will select this drop down. We go column settings, and we're going to go show hide columns. And we are going to untick some of these items to condense the layout and the information that is visible. Then we are going to select this filter icon. We are going to filter for just my appointments, and we will see that any appointments that are not assigned to me are removed. And I also just wanted to note that we've actually removed the groomer column. We've hidden it, but we can still use it in a filter, which is super handy. So I'm going to close out of this. And then for the groom date, I'm going to go older to newer. And then now we have updated the sort here as well. So now let's select this little drop down here, and we are going to go save view as. That name of the view that you want to edit should auto populate, and you should be able to just click save. So now this view has saved, and now we can toggle between all items or my appointments, and we are going to see that those hidden columns are now filtered and sorted, and everything is perfect for that custom view. Now we're going to move on to collaboration within Microsoft Teams, starting with integrations. And there are 3 ways that we can integrate our lists within Microsoft Teams. The first way is via the Teams home page. And if we go to this edit icon on the top right, then we can now bring our list directly into our Teams homepage. So we will search for list, select our list, and then now here, these are going to be all of the lists that are created within your Microsoft Teams group. And the one that we just have been working on together is this grooming clients list. So we can see that that has now been brought in, and now we can view our list directly from our Teams home site. But one of my favorite features here is if we select this edit properties, then we can go over to view, and here we can adjust the view on our Teams homepage via some of those custom views that we've just created. So if we select Amy's appointments and then apply, then we are going to see that that is now going to be the default view on this Teams homepage. So once you have all of your updates done, then we can republish this, and we can see that that is now visible and easily accessible there. Number 2 is if we go to this drop down from the home, then we can go open a new window. And this is going to open your Teams home site in Microsoft SharePoint. And when we created that list at the beginning of this tutorial, we checked in-site navigation, which is this navigation on the left-hand side here. So from this menu, this item has automatically been added, and we can now easily access our list from the left menu there. And the third way is how we can bring our list directly into a channel tab. So at the beginning of this video, we created that list directly within this channel. And if we create a list within the list app like we have done so far, then we can add it into a Teams channel. Once again, we'll press that plus icon, locate lists, and then now list is going to be added to this channel. So we will go ahead and save. And then this time we are going to go add an existing list. And here we have all of those lists that are within this team's group. And the one that we want to add is here. We will select that. It's just going to take a minute to load, especially if you do have a bigger list. It's going to take a little bit of time to bring it into your team's house, but now you will easily be able to access your list directly within a tab from a team's channel. Moving on to tip number 10, which is comments versus conversations within teams. One of the biggest benefits of bringing your list into teams is the ability to collaborate with your team members on list items. So starting off with comments, if we select any of these items, then we are going to open up the item card. And on the right-hand side here, we have comments. And you'll see this at mention, which I cannot stress enough. If you are going to tag any of your team members, be sure that you press the @ sign and properly tag them. Otherwise, they will not be notified. And also just to note here that if you are going to be tagging somebody, you will be granting them permissions to this item. So just be mindful about sharing of information and permissions and that kind of thing. So if you are enjoying this video, then please give it a thumbs up to let me know that you like my content, and also feel free to drop any comments down below on what your favorite feature so far is within Microsoft Lists. So now we are going to send that comment to Mike, and when we send comments, that person is going to be notified as long as they are tagged. Let's now go check out what Mike's email looks like. So here we are in Mike's email, and this is what it looks like when you comment and mention somebody within the comments section of a list item. So Mike can see exactly what the comment is directly from this email, and he can now go to the comment, which will open up this list item where he can collaborate with me on the side here. And as long as he tags me, then I will also be notified. So it sounds good, and then we will send. Back in my teams, when we open up these list items, then we can see the comments on the right-hand side. So this is a great way to keep track of all of the comments. And I would say that comments are really good for a one-on-one conversation. Now let's take a look at conversations. So if we select Layla, then on the top right here, we have conversations, which opens up a new pane on the right-hand side, which is similar to a Teams chat message, where you can have rich conversations, you can format text, add emojis, add loop components, or even insert files. So it's an opportunity for you to have a richer conversation. So down here, similar to before, we will press the @ sign. And then now, because we are having a conversation, this is opening up team collaboration. We have a couple of different options here. So one of the suggestions is we can notify everyone in the chat. And because we are in a Teams channel, this would notify everyone that is a part of this channel, thereby Teams collaboration. Or you can incorporate a bot or add someone specific to your channel, or even share someone's contact information. So let's go with everyone, so that we will notify everyone that's within this Teams channel. And let's go, what color should we paint Layla's nails? And then we can now send this conversation, and let's see what this looks like with our other team members. So here we are within Mike's team, and because there is a new message in that grooming channel, we can see that it is bold. And depending on your team members' notification settings, they may or may not receive a notification, but the bolded channel is always an indication that there is new activity. So when Mike selects this channel, then he can see that there is that chat there, and he can respond, and now he can have a conversation and even tag me directly and just say, thanks, Amy. Let's go with blue. Okay, so this is a great example of how you can collaborate with your team on a specific list item in a Teams channel. And when we click on Layla, we are going to be redirected to that list item. And then now we have all of Layla's information here. And if we go to that conversations tab on the top right, then we can see all of that conversation thread here, which allows us to have those richer conversations. For more advanced features on Microsoft Lists, then check out this playlist here. Alternatively, YouTube recommends this video.